So let's look at this section from the homework. In the instructions, it says, write the polynomial in standard form. Identify the degree and leading coefficient of the polynomial. Then classify the polynomial by the number of terms. Okay, so let's look at 13. Okay, now when they talk about the degree, they're saying, what is the degree of the entire polynomial? Well, the degree of the entire polynomial is whatever the degree of the highest monomial is. So what's the degree of this individual monomial? 2. What's the degree of this individual monomial? 4. And what's the degree of this one? 1. And so you say, okay, what's the highest of any of the individual monomials is 4. So the degree of this entire polynomial is 4. The degree is 4. Okay. Then it says, what's the leading coefficient? Well, you look at whichever monomial had the highest degree, which is this middle one right here. So what's the coefficient of it? 2. So the leading coefficient is 2. And then it says classify it. Tell if it's a monomial, binomial, or trinomial. Well, it has how many terms? 3. So this is a trinomial. And that's all you had to do. So as we look at 14, we look at each individual term. What's the degree of this first term? 11. And what's the degree of this one?
12.
So the overall degree is 12. And then you say, since this was my highest degree, what is the coefficient of it? -1. So my leading coefficient is -1. And then, is that a monomial, binomial, or trinomial?
Binomial.
A binomial, because there are 2 terms. Now, on both, we didn't do one thing. It says to write it in what? Standard form. Now, you did that. Write the polynomial in standard form. You did that on the sheet. Standard form just means descending order. So you look at let's look at number 13 again. Which one of these 3 terms has the highest degree? 2c to the 4th. So you write it first. 2c to the 4th. And then what's the second highest degree? So you write plus 6c squared and then minus c. And so this right here is considered standard form because it goes from the highest degree term to the lowest degree term. And so on number 3, you need to tell the degree, the leading coefficient, classify it, and then write it in standard form, right? On 14, I told the degree of the whole binomial. I told the leading coefficient. I told that it was a binomial, and now I need to write it in standard form, which would be -1w to the 12 plus 4w to the 11. Right? Now let's clarify a few things. Let's say I have 4x squared y cubed plus 3x plus 1 plus 4 y to the 4th z to the 10th. Okay? Now first I want you to understand something. You're looking at each individual monomial in its own terms. What is the degree of this monomial? 5. You look at the degree here, x squared and y cubed, and you add them. So the degree of that monomial is 5. What's the degree of this monomial? 1. What's the degree of this one? 0. And see, each of these monomials is separated by a plus sign, or it can be separated by a minus sign, right? What's the degree of this one? 14, right? You take the 4 plus the 10 and you get 14. And now you say, which of those is the highest?
14.
The 14 is. So the degree of the entire polynomial is 14. So let's do 2 more. This is the exact same problems, same instructions. Okay, why don't we look at number 18? Oops. Why don't we look at 18? Okay, so now I look at each individual term. What's the degree of this term? 1. What's the degree of this one? 3. What's the degree of this one? 4. So the overall degree is whatever the highest degree is, which is 4. Okay, the leading coefficient is going to be 3. And this is a trinomial. And then I got to write it in standard form, so I go biggest degree to smallest. 3 2z to the fourth plus 2z cubed plus 5z. So it's just descending order is standard form, right? Okay, let's look at 19. What's the degree? Now, this has a pi, but pi is just a number. It's no different than if they wrote 3.14 r squared, right? So what's the degree of this? 2. What's the degree of this? 8. And what's the degree of this? 5. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to tell the overall degree is 8, right? The leading coefficient is negative 5 over 7, and this is a trinomial, isn't it? And then I'm going to write it in descending order, negative 5 over 7, r to the a, plus 2r to the fifth, plus pi r squared. And so that right there is the standard form version of number 19.